Hi everyone. So my name's Joel Gujral, and the reason I'm here today and this topic means so much to me actually backdates to my own mental and physical gut health story and journey, which is actually in two key parts. So the first part actually started about 6 years ago when I suddenly woke up in the nighttime and I couldn't breathe properly. I had really bad chest pain, shortness of breath, and I thought it was a heart attack. And my parents rushed me to A&E, and we really just didn't know what to do. And the doctors were really perplexed. They didn't know what was going on. But after 8 months of going through this again and again and again, and after constant trips to A&E, to GPs and to consultants, they actually found that it was a physical gut condition. And because it was for a period of 8 months, I actually started to develop deep depression and actually suicidal tendencies because of that, for the first time in my life, like that had ever happened. And the thing that they actually found was, because it was a gut condition, it was causing acid reflux, but that acid reflux was causing swelling of my airways, which was causing all the problems. And then part two of my story is actually when they treated that gut condition. But unfortunately, when they treated it, they caused a further complication by mistake, and it actually caused then IBS type symptoms and lower gastrointestinal symptoms. And that actually put me back into another state of depression and suicidal tendencies that lasted months and months and months. But then it was my understanding of how the gut interacts with the mind and the mind interacts with the gut that actually got me out of that scenario. And I built up the tools and techniques and the knowledge and experience over the last 6 years that have now moved me to the happiest point in my life, even though I'm still suffering with the problems today. So I'm really excited to share all of that knowledge with you today, but also the top 3 tools and techniques that I personally use on a weekly, monthly and quarterly basis. So firstly, a little bit about the science between the mind and the gut and the gut and the mind. So if we look at the gut to the mind first, so the gut is actually made up of billions and billions and billions of good and bad bacteria, which is called your gut microbiome. And an imbalance of your gut microbiome actually causes a whole host of mental health problems, such as stress, anxiety, but all the way through to even schizophrenia and autism in extreme cases. And then if we look at the other way round, the mind to the gut, your mental state is so powerful that it can actually cause an imbalance of your delicate digestive system. And a really good example to highlight this is stress. So stress actually does 2 things. It either speeds up your digestive system, which can actually cause chronic diarrhea, or it can actually slow it down, which can cause things like constipation, which you might have heard of. And now we're actually going to take that a level deeper. So you heard about part 1 of my story about acid reflux. We're actually going to talk about that now. So it's a very common condition. It affects about 20% of the UK population on a regular basis, and about 9 million GP visits every single year are because of acid reflux. And the way it works is that the acid in your stomach actually starts creeping up through your esophagus towards your throat. And this is why it causes a whole host of problems like chest pain, shortness of breath, burning in your chest. So when you actually get to see a doctor, or you go to A&E, or you go to hospital, because you're describing symptoms that are not even to do with your stomach, it's really commonly misdiagnosed. And now I'm actually going to talk about the 2-way interaction between how stress and anxiety interacts with acid reflux and vice versa. So stress and anxiety actually does 2 things, which is really interesting. It actually causes acid in your stomach to increase, but it also reduces the pressure of muscle at the top of your stomach, which is meant to stop the acid from coming up into your esophagus. But because the pressure is reduced, it no longer does that. So what happens is then you start to receive all the acid reflux type symptoms, and those in itself start to cause lots of stress and anxiety because they're in the chest area and you think there's something wrong. And because you're building up more stress and anxiety, that then causes more acid to flow up and more acid production as well, which is then causes a very vicious cycle. So it can become quite dangerous, both physically and mentally. But then a recent European study was really interesting. It actually proved this and showed that people with lower job satisfaction were 2 times more likely to have acid reflux type symptoms than those with higher job satisfaction. So I found that really interesting actually to see the research there. And then we're actually going to talk about IBS and the mental health interactions. This is all about part 2 of my story, what I'm currently going through. So it's a very common condition affecting about 10% of the global population. And the way it works is that your brain is connected to your digestive system by something called the vagus nerve. Now, information flows from the brain to the gut and from the gut to the brain through your vagus nerve. And IBS is caused by a disorder in the flow of this communication. And that causes a whole host of symptoms. Everything from diarrhea, constipation, and even bloating as well. And then we're going to go on to now talking more about how mental health affects IBS and how IBS affects mental health. And what's really interesting to see in academic research now is that you're 3 times more likely to have lifetime depression, not just depression, lifetime depression, so long-going chronic depression, if you have IBS compared to a healthy individual. And there's actually 2 main reasons for that. The first reason is because the symptoms are so invasive and personal. What happens is you start to seek social isolation. You don't want to be in public places. You avoid social activities and even seeing your friends. And that's what causes the depression there. And then if we look at it the other way round, how your IBS is affected by your mental state, it's actually shown that because your vagus nerve isn't stimulating properly and there's a disorder there, you have something called low vagal tone, which is the state of your vagus nerve if you have IBS. But to actually boost your vagal tone, it's actually proven that mindfulness practices like visualization and breathing can actually start stimulating it again. And over time, you can retrain it back to healthier levels. So your mind is really powerful in this. And now I'm actually going to show you 3 of those key tools and techniques that have been not only life-changing for me, that have helped me boost my vagal tone, but also reduce stress and anxiety caused by acid reflux as well. And the first is box breathing. So this sounds really simple, but this is used by top athletes and even the Navy SEALs. It's a brilliant tool because it builds up CO2 in your blood, which does 2 things. The first thing is that it stimulates your vagus nerve and boosts your vagal tone. But the second thing is that it stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system. Now that's part of your nervous system that makes you feel really calm and relaxed. So it reduces stress and anxiety and is fantastic for things like acid reflux or acid reflux sufferers. But it not only makes you feel calm and relaxed in your mind, it's a mind and body technique. So it flows through you physically in your body. You'll feel your body tingling as you go through this. But it's also a very practical tool. You can use it when you're sitting at your desk at work with your eyes open, or if you need some privacy, you can even go to a toilet cubicle and do it there. And the way it works, I'm just going to talk you through this now, and you can go away and do it in your own time, is that you simply breathe in for 4 seconds, and that's deep nasal breaths, deep through, down into your stomach as well, deep belly breaths. So you breathe in 4 seconds really slowly, you then hold for 4 seconds, you then breathe out of your mouth for 4 seconds, really nice and slowly, you then hold for 4 seconds, and that's 1 cycle. And you repeat this cycle several times until you've reached a point of relaxation that you want to get to, depending on the scenario you're in. And then the second tool or technique is visualization using music therapy. So this is absolutely brilliant and something that I use on a weekly basis. The way it works is that it's very good for low mood and boosting your mood and depression. So it's amazing for IBS sufferers. And the way it works is that you put your headphones in, you shut your eyes, and you put some music on. That music needs to do 2 things. It needs to make you feel calm and relaxed, but also quite uplifted as well. And then you're either going to think about the past or the future. And when you think about the past and future, you're trying to have some relaxation, but something that can uplift you and make you feel quite excited. So as you have your eyes closed and you think about the past, it could be when you've passed a great exam, your accountancy exams, your GCSEs, your A-levels, or it could be another sense of achievement that you've done. Or you think about the future. And what's quite interesting, I've worked with quite a lot of executive coaches, and when I think about the future, the most impactful thing for me is visiting your future self. So you think about the house you live in, the cars that you drive, the job you have in an idealistic scenario. And then as you are doing this, you want to engage your senses. So you want to feel about the wind on your face, physical touch flowing through your body, the smells you can smell, the birds humming in the background, and you want to immerse yourself in that environment. And as you're doing that, you want to take deep nasal breaths. So that's in through your nose, out through your nose as well, but deep down into your belly and your stomach. And what is really interesting is that over time, you can train yourself to become more advanced at this, but it will take you about 20 to 30 minutes of visualization to actually get to the most peak performance of deep relaxation. And then finally, we're actually going to talk about mindset retraining and how to actually reset your mind and regain control, both physically and mentally. So this is something that I've used and has been really life-changing for me. And the way it works is that when you do have a physical gut condition, it's really easy to overthink about the short term, about the long term, and you're thinking either about two things. That is past trauma of all of the heartache you've been through, because you've been through so much, or the future. And when you're thinking about the future, you're thinking about hypothetical things that haven't even happened yet. And what happens, your mind can exaggerate these things and move them out of control. And this can be really dangerous for not only your physical state, your mental state. But by regaining control of a situation and retraining your mind, you can actually retrain yourself to get back to a heightened state of relaxation so you can live in the present moment. You can be mindful, you can forget about the past, forget about the future, and live and enjoy the present moment. And that's what it's all about. And the way this works is that in any situation that you're in, when you've got extreme anxiety or low mood, you list out the top 3 to 5 things that you physically have control of. And these are the top 3 to 5 only. You don't want to list out any more than that because you're going to get overwhelmed. You then let the situation run out, and I'm going to talk through a live example in a second of this. And then if you get bad thoughts or negative thoughts creep back in, you practice those mindfulness tools that I showed, the visualization and the breathing. So it's all interconnected. So a great example of someone suffering with a physical gut condition, and this is a personal example of mine, is the 3 things that I listed were that I've booked in an appointment with my consultant. And that's in my control. I've done that. It's in the diary. The second thing is I've got my food diary. I've got all my questions and all my research ready to go, and I'm going to hand it over to them in the appointment. And the third thing that I did was I even had a backup doctor who could give me a second opinion, and I got my insurance company to even let me have a second opinion as well if I didn't agree with the diagnosis. And what this does is it allows you to break down a situation, regain control into small achievable milestones, and gives you a plan of action so that you can actually achieve something. And when you feel that sense of achievement, you start feeling better, you start feeling fantastic, and that anxiety will slowly go away from your body. And what it does, it allows you to control the situation rather than the situation to control you. So thanks very much, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed that.